Hey guys, if you like this content, I would greatly appreciate it if you guys like the video and subscribed to my channel. It helps make these videos worth it going forward. Hey guys, Altcoin Sherpa here with a crypto market review. I'll be doing some altcoin requests that I had on Twitter. As always, this is not financial advice. I'm not an expert. Do your own research. Okay, so I'll just briefly go into Bitcoin really quick. I'm just going to really run through Bitcoin just because I do Bitcoin every single day. I still believe that like 50K is like the area to watch eventually for a lot of reasons, and you look at my other videos just to like see SR flip, high VP volume profile area. Yeah, this is like the area that I'm viewing is 50K. Now, I don't know what's going to happen after 50,000, but I still strongly feel that 50K is like the area of interest. And I believe that alt USD pairs as a whole should do well up until that point. After that, like, again, I have no idea. Like, price could like blitz up and then break down to like, 40K or even like lower. It could like go even higher, like past up to like 60K, and then like break down up near this like supply zone. Like there's just a lot of different scenarios that can happen after 50, but for me, I'm just playing level to level, and like I'd be pretty surprised if price just like reversed and broke all-time highs from here. I think a more likely scenario is just that price hits like a lower high, almost certainly around like 50,000 or 55,000 or 60,000, and then like price just continues to chop around for a while. Like we'll see this for the next few months. So that's kind of my overall macro midterm thoughts on Bitcoin, and like 50K is like the area to break, and alt USD pairs should do pretty well in my opinion. Okay, so let's look briefly at Ethereum. Ethereum looks pretty good, as most alt USD pairs will be pretty good during this time. It's going to fill out this inefficient move, and there is going to be like a sell zone all throughout 3,300 and 3,500. If Bitcoin goes to 50K, then I believe that 3,500 or so will be the area to look for. I feel pretty strongly about that. Again, similar to Bitcoin, I believe that ETH will hit some sort of like lower high, something like this, like pull back, and then it could go all the way up to 4K. I think it's maybe unlikely to just have this like kind of huge run, but regardless, like 4,300 should be like a pretty good area to start selling for a lot of reasons. But like the main is that there's just like a lot of time spent in between each peak, and usually when that happens, like these initial first taps of like a support or resistance area is like a good initial entry. So, but again, it's really going to depend on how price gets there. For me, I'm bullish up until like 3,500, and the thoughts are very similar to Bitcoin going to 50,000. I think that ETH also looks pretty good in that regard. Don't quite know what's going to happen after like 3,500, but like that's kind of like my overall target for Ethereum USD. Let's look briefly at some. I'll go to ETH BTC too. ETH BTC actually is still in a bullish market structure in my opinion. On the high time frame charts, like the weekly, this to me seems like still undeniably bullish. Like we're seeing higher highs, higher lows, and like I think what we're seeing right here is just like a higher low formed. As I always say in the previous videos, it takes a long time for lows to form, and you can see back in all throughout the last few months, like this low has been forming, but that's not really very uncommon. Like if you look at ETH USD in the past, you'll see that these lows take like many weeks to form, and this is no different after like such a huge run for ETH BTC back in starting in March. We're seeing this low kind of consolidate here and form. Like with that said, I'm not saying that like this bottom is necessarily completely in. Like, we could certainly see something like 055 tapped again. Like if Bitcoin goes really strongly up to like 60,000, I'm pretty sure that 055 will get tapped. But regardless, I do believe like the overall kind of midterm lows are in. Like 055, it shouldn't go lower than 055 in my opinion. Still think this looks pretty good on high time frame charts. Like it spent like a few almost like years in accumulation, and then now it's starting to go. '08 is like the next area up after it can break. Like this is kind of like a non-level. I'm not sure why I marked it the '07 level, but yeah, this is kind of like my overall thoughts on ETH BTC. It still looks pretty good in my opinion. So, and when ETH BTC does pretty well, it usually means that alt BTC, like the good pairs, are pretty decent, and I think you're seeing that across many ETH. I'm sorry, not ETH. Many alt BTC pairs, but the shit, there's a lot of shit alt BTC pairs as well. Like they just look terrible. So, anyways, I will start going through many different altcoin charts now, and these are some altcoin charts that you guys requested. Let's go with MATIC USD. MATIC, this doesn't look very good. I mean, it looks fine. It reclaimed this kind of like accumulation kind of zone, but as a whole, it just doesn't really look great. It wouldn't surprise me to see this chop around a little bit more. You could maybe argue this is like looking like a V-shaped bottom, but I don't really necessarily think this is quite it. Like this right here is a V-shaped bottom, like right here. Like the reversal after the dump in May, this is the definition of a V-shaped bottom, and then after it hit like kind of this double top, price just like pulled back a lot. So like MATIC is still a good project, but I don't really see this being a strong mover in the short term. I think this is still just going to keep chopping around and consolidating. Like this isn't really a good active trade, in other words. What you can see too is like this 200-day EMA was like a pretty solid buy. Of course, like, you know, easy to say that in hindsight. And it's funny because I remember trading this one. I bought around 75 cents, and thinking that the 200-day EMA would be a great buy because it hadn't been touched in quite some time. But, you know, I actually got stopped out, and it's stupid because I've done so many of these types of trades and gotten wicked out. They're stopped out just because there's like a lot of liquidity underneath. And people like me, you know, who will just puke sell my shit in these situations, and then price just rebounded. So yeah, that was like a bad decision on my part. But to me, this is like not an active trade. DOT USDT. To me, this just looks like it's consolidating. This 200-day EMA is this red line here. We're seeing this act as resistance, and this is pretty common when you see a large gap in price and this EMA. As you can see, there was like a large gap up until recently, and now this is like acting as resistance. It would be interesting to me to see this flip as support. So like I would want to see kind of like this to keep grinding up, and then you'll see a lot of times price flipping back and forth this 200-day EMA when it's going from resistance and support. Look at the 2019 BTC chart for more of this example. You'll see it flipping and flopping back and forth as resistance and support. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of Link too. Link was trying to break its 200-day EMA resistance area, but to me, like I still am expecting this to consolidate within this overall range of $28 and $17. I think it'll consolidate for quite some time, and then maybe move up later. Link. So this is like, again, we just discussed it with DOT. Excuse me. Okay, so we are looking at Link, and as you can see, this 200-day EMA is acting as resistance, this red line. But we saw a dump, but we're seeing price consolidate with it. So usually, as I said before, you'll see this starting to flip around back and forth. I mean, to me, like with the way that the market is looking, I think this is actually pretty bullish, and I think it's actually going to go to like 34. That's like the next area of interest for me. This is like a very high volume area, as you can see with volume profile. Like there's a lot of trading activity between 24 and 34. So in terms of active trades, it's a little bit confusing to me in terms of overall profit targets, but I think it's pretty likely that price goes and grinds up through this area and just consolidates. I think that's pretty likely for Link USDT. ADA Cardano. What we're seeing here is we're seeing resistance around 150 get tapped over and over again. I think this is actually going to break eventually, like pretty soon. So what we saw here was another test of this back in early July. I thought there was two scenarios. Either one, it breaks up to past 150 up to 180, or it breaks down, and it actually decided to break down, and it did not break, or did not find any support at 120 like I was thinking. It broke down even further to $1. So right now what you're looking for, if you are bullish on ADA, is just for the price to continue grinding up in this area. But I mean, when it is grinding up against resistance in this context, it looks pretty bullish, especially given the market environment. And it's also important to understand too that this is 200-day EMA is acting as support. It's not resistance like it is for Link and DOT. So, like if you're fishing for an entry again, I would look for like 126. But if price continues to grind up around here, you can probably expect 180. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying here because it is resistance still. Luna, this is a trade that I am currently just got out of actually, and that reasoning for that is that I think that BTC looks bullish, and therefore alt USD pairs will look bullish as well. I closed out the majority of my trade around actually 1340, and again the reason was just because I thought that this was a support level around this kind of $13 area, and I also, more importantly, felt that BTC USD looked bullish to me on the daily, and therefore I think that alt USD pairs will look bullish as well. So I closed out the majority of my short around 1340, and then I also closed it out this morning at like the low 14s. And I have asks all the way up like around 15 and 16. I don't think it's going to break 17 personally. Like I would be pretty surprised if it breaks 17 on this go. I have asks all throughout like 15 and 16 and 17. So like this is like the area that I'm looking. I'm still looking to short Luna, to be clear, and I'm looking for like the 11s or so. But I think that this will short term move up. So yeah, I'm still looking to. I still think this is going to head lower and cool off. With that said, like, we might see something like this or grind up and then maybe like form some sort of higher low and then continue. That would be a scenario that I'm viewing. But for now, I definitely think this is like gonna cool. So like, I'm just looking to short up at like 16 or so. That's like kind of my overall plan for Luna. AXS, like similar to Luna, I'm not looking to short this, but I do think this is heading lower. Like I think this looks like distribution myself. Like when you see crazy wicks in both directions and price just like consolidating, this is usually not a bullish type of market structure on lower time frame charts, and it's not really. It doesn't look good too when like candles are closing like this. You see like big wicks up and not much follow through. Certainly possible that this like scam pumps up even higher, but I think it's very likely this just heads lower. Like $30 is like my overall kind of area to look for. High sell volume coming in. Yeah, this is like, to me, looks bad, and I'm guessing that once this cools off big, then we will see stuff like Alice and other NFT coins kind of go lower as well. ACH, this coin had insane amount of pumping. My friend actually got in like really low and then like did really excellent on it. To me, it looks okay. I mean, usually after huge runs like this though, you'll need to see like lots and lots of consolidation. Theta is a good example if you want to look at charts of Theta, where like it'll do stuff like Moon and then it'll like consolidate for like months and weeks and then it'll have another leg up. But to me, this just like looks like it's just going to consolidate for a while. Yeah, I'm guessing this just consolidates for a bit. I don't think it's going to make another leg up anytime soon. In fact, like you might just want to consider buying at 0.85, like kind of like what I expect to be like the range bottom. But I'm expecting more consolidation on this one. I don't necessarily think it's going to go and break higher myself anytime soon. DGB, really good moves lately. 200-day EMA should act as resistance. This chart isn't super clear to me, to be frank and honest with you. I do think that this 0788 area will be resistance. I think that this is probably going to be like a high volume area. Yep. So expecting this to continue chopping within this kind of range here. Don't really think it's an active trade myself. Kava, this was pretty good lately. Did hit the supply zone around 650 and wicked up. Crazy volume that came in, so like this was like kind of like the short-term bottom in my opinion. I think it's likely that this like continues to like have another test up near there, and then you can consider selling for sure up near this area. But I would be careful with your profit targets for shorting this thing, because there's like kind of a crazy amount of volume that came through. So maybe it'll just keep going. And like I think the BTC pair also looks pretty good on this one, if I recall correctly. So expecting more resistance from 650 to 750, but let's just kind of see. Tomo, this was the one coin that I was thinking about like longing during like mid-July, because the market looked really shit back then, and like this was the one altcoin that looked pretty good. I do believe that this was a sell zone around $3 to $3.50, and price did pull back from there, but we're still seeing this kind of grinding price action where price is just like chopping up and slowly grinding up. I don't know if it's going to continue, but I mean, this could be a good example of like stairs up, elevator down, like where we just see continue grinding up and then boom, like elevator down. But I think as long as Bitcoin looks good, then we'll see this continue to go higher actually. So this is also an impressive coin too, because it actually got up to levels before the big dump. Like, you know, all the altcoins dumped in May. This is actually one good example that altcoins can reclaim kind of like those old highs. For me personally, I thought that a lot of them would require a lot more ranging and consolidation, but we're actually seeing coins like Tomo go back to some of their old highs. Ocean looks okay, rounded bottom. This looks good on higher time frame charts. In my opinion, you'll see just kind of this continued rounded bottom. This looks like RSR, where you'll see something like this, like up and then down, and like you'll see. In my opinion, I think you'll see like a cup and handle, something like this. That's my guess as to what happened. So like looking at the 7.7 area or 0.08 is the level that I would view. I'm guessing this continues to chop up until that point though. So KSM looks okay for right now. Kind of like a double bottom on low time frame charts. I'm using these fibs as SR levels. Like for an active trade, you'd want to look for 250 as a break, in my opinion, something like this. Until that, it's just going to be resistance. So expecting still more like chop overall, but like if you're looking for an active trade, look for a break of 250 and then go from there. Like probably target like 300. And if the market overall looks pretty healthy, then you target even higher, like 370 or so. RUNE, similar chart as Ocean and RSR and all those others. So just go ahead and assume rounded bottom, and then probably resistance at like 64 or something like that. CRV, this coin looks pretty bad. Not an active trade. Resistance all throughout like the $2 area. This is a really choppy chart. It's confusing to me. Like I wouldn't buy it personally. Like if the entire environment is just bullish, like, you know, you'll see a break of this, and then I would target 270. This wouldn't surprise me at all, but again, it's going to be more because alt USD looks good and not because like CRV is like good, if that makes sense. MITX, don't know what this is. Would view 64064 as like an area of interest. Yeah, that's like kind of an area that's coming up. So should be, I don't know if there's futures offered on this, but I would short that area. It is formed a good base though. It's something to acknowledge, is that this base has been formed even earlier than the other coins that dumped before. So like, you know, other coins were really pumping like beforehand, and this pumped and then just dumped a card. But this dumped this was dumping before like the big dump in May. So it's interesting to note that this has been accumulating longer. So therefore, it might actually have like a pretty strong run once it breaks 065. Because it has been accumulating even longer than the other coins. You know, we saw many other coins like accumulate recently, but they've been accumulating less time. So this could actually pump pretty strongly. But similar to other coins, I'd wait for a break of 065-ish. The file coin, this is a shit coin, as they all are. It looks good, like in terms of the volume coming in. I wouldn't necessarily buy, I don't think, but it's interesting to see that this 65 cents area or so has been flipped to support, and price is able to hold above it. So we're seeing right now, like, you know, all the support all throughout this range in May, and we see price dump below, and then it's resistance actually right here and here. So we're seeing resistance, and then now it's flipped to support. Don't really think this is... I don't really know if this is an active buy or not. I would definitely take some off at 88 cents myself. And then there's a psychological number of... I'm sorry, not 88, $88. And then there's a psychological number of like $100. Like this will be kind of areas to view. Ramp. Looks like I did a chart of this and thought it might have been like a double bottom, and I was horrifically wrong. Optimistically bullish back then. Didn't think that price would dump as bad as it did, of course. This looks better than it did before because, I mean, well, there was a lot of volume that came there, but there was no follow-up. Here, there was actually some okay amount of volume, but to me, this doesn't look really like a buy. To me, it just still looks like it's ranging. Good moves now, but there is some resistance for sure around 26 cents. Wouldn't necessarily buy myself though. Atom was in a consolidation range, broke down, and then it entered a new range. Here's the range that you're viewing. It looks okay. I mean, not good or bad. I'd probably wait for a break of like 14 or so. And then to test the range highs, so something like this. And then test 17. And then after 17, you'll see this area up next, around 20. But to me, it's pretty likely that this will hit the range high, especially given the environment. So like, you know, $17 should be like the next resistance area up. FTT, I reviewed this coin before. This actually looks pretty good. I think this is actually one of the safer altcoins you can buy over the next few years because of the backers and because this is just likely to stay around for a few years. Like, that's more than like nearly every other altcoin can say. Like, who knows what the fuck AXS is going to look like in a few years, given like all the new games and NFTs. Like, you know, it's really going to be very interesting. To me, this looks like kind of the next area up, though, like this $50 to $53 area. This is an area that I would definitely start taking profit at. But, you know, if price starts to dump, if you are looking for a long time bag, FTT is probably one. As I said in Twitter, I'm not a SAM worshiper like many other people are, but I do think that they will be around for a while. So this is an area that I would view, though, as like 55 or so. It looks good, though. I mean, like, had pretty good recovery. Band, I was observing this structure on the 4 hours, a very weird one. It's like kind of like higher highs and higher lows and just like totally broke down. But I mean, that's like a good example of like why you should look at higher time frame charts anyways. Like the overall market structure on this thing is just really bearish overall. It still to me is bearish, like unless you want to count this like as a high, then it created a higher high like recently, but I don't necessarily know if this is like a valid high. If it is, then actually it looks pretty good, because what you're looking for at this point now is like you just saw like potential break in market structure on the daily. So like you see a low and then you see like a higher low. And then you like if you denote this as a high, then you see a higher high. But to me, a better way of visualizing this is just I think it's just like in a large consolidation, honestly. Like this entire thing is just like a big range. And I think it's just still like kind of an accumulation mode from like $4 to $9. I know that's like a pretty big price range in general, but to me, this is like this is like how I'd rather view it myself. It's just like that price is in a range. I do think similar to Atom, though, this is going to go to like $9. I think that the range high is pretty likely. And you can see that this range too, like, you know, the SR, this EQ, the equilibrium of the range is pretty like set as a good SR level. You can see this support, breakdown, resistance, and now it flipped to support. So something like this would make sense to me, like go up and then go back down. HTR, this coin actually looks really good. Once it flips 65 cents, I think that the next area of interest would be like this 90 cents area. There's a lot of confluence with that area, more like $1 actually, but this looks strong to me. If you're looking for an active trade, I would wait for a break of 65 and then go from there. RUNE is a coin that I'm in. I thought it was going to go more like to 10, but you know, price actually broke down. Like I still think that 10 is like pretty likely, and I'm pretty happy that I was able to buy some all throughout the 4s and 5s. Is this the overall bottom for RUNE? I'm not sure. I mean, the volume is absolutely insane, which is usually what you want to see for a bottom. But for me, I'm just playing at level to level. I think that like $10 seems pretty good and kind of possible for sure. I did buy some at 640 actually. I got very lucky to get filled, but I do have some lower orders that didn't get filled. So I do think that $10 is the next area up for RUNE. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for the support, and thanks for commenting on Twitter.